Servus and hello, Matthias here, and this is Singletrack. After a rather long break, I was back racing, and then this week, I'm in the hot seat with my coach, Matt Urbanski, checking in after yet another DNF at Orcas 100-miler last weekend. Look, the race was hard, the race was glorious. I didn't reach the finish line, but made it further, longer, and higher than I've ever ran. It was a great time. Yes, I wasn't fast enough to make the cutoff after 3 loops, and yes, the blisters, the chafing, and the exhaustion after a long night with smoky air broke me in the end, but I had a great time out there. Sometimes it's not just about the goal we set ourselves, it's the process we enjoy, the journey of discovery, and especially the adventure. I'm learning this, and I am okay with it. What you're about to hear in this episode is my first post-race call with my running coach, Matt Urbanski from Team Run Run. Do you believe, I don't really, but do you believe that dreams can somehow tell the future?
If they're dreams if it's a future that I'm interested in, yes.
I know, right? So the night before the race, we sit in we're in a hotel room in Orcas. I wake up with this dream that I've completed the race, but I have no memory of any of it. Like, I have a buckle, I have everything, but I have absolutely no memory of what happened on the trail. And I was like, that's weird, whatever, right? That's how I feel this week, because the race, I guess Monte Rosa was similar because we flew back immediately and the kids immediately had to get back to school. But this madness of having to get back into real life, I know that racing but it's supposed to be vacation too, right? And in a sense, painful vacation perhaps in many ways, but in a sense, it's like the worst type of vacation where you come home and you like immediately get barraged with so much stuff that you sort of regretted of ever having left, right? But that's how I feel a little bit right now. I think overall, physically I'm fine. Especially my legs are surprisingly doing well. My feet are still sore, and that's a big subject of my frustration and concern, just because I get so many blisters and I don't know how to deal with that. And perhaps I need to change shoes or whatever, but whatever. So I'm still kind of healing the blisters out. But other than that, I'm feeling fatigued still, right? But not like in any way like injured or lingering soreness. In fact, overall my legs, considering that I did these crazy hills, I'm actually feeling really well, right? So yeah, man, fuck, another DNF.
Sometimes you just gotta laugh at it, and then just to take the sting out a little bit. They suck. I've had lots of them. I don't like them. But they happen, and go ahead and be like, I tell guys, like, deal with the stages of grief, right? You can be angry, you can be sad, and like feel all those things. They're real and they're normal, but like, then like also look back at like, okay, well, what went well? What can we do better? How can we learn from it? And then you look forward and you apply it to the next one, and you just keep going until you figure shit out. That's the way I try and at least do it, and I encourage other people to do it.
No, absolutely. Realistically, right? I've had a very soft year of training so far until we started, right? Like, my running volume has been very low. And I've been joking with Scott, who ran with me, and he reminded me that it's not actually true, that I need to be more careful, because I feel like I'm DNFing all the races that I don't pay race entry for. And I wonder if there's something to it, right? That you're sort of like, Scott had already signed up, and he was like, hey, we could go out there together. And I was like, well, I'm not paying for the race entry. I might as well. Not really thinking of if I'm really up for that hard of a race, right? And so, I mean, that's sort of in the back of my mind. It was like, perhaps a DNF because I sort of like, I get a free race entry, so might as well sign up for it. And I mean, I feel like the training was the best training that I've ever done leading up to a race. But given that the race has so much vert and a super evil cutoff for the amount of vert, I just think made it too hard for where I am at.
Yeah, I mean, I think that had we had 4 months instead of 2 months, like your odds of success would have gone way up. Because I mean, you nailed every workout. You were running really well in preparation for it. Like for 2 months of running, I feel like you made a lot of quick, like you set yourself up as well as you could in 2 months' time. But like, I can also say, I don't think that race is like out of your realm by any means. Like you did 3 of the 4 loops, and
I was really close. I was really close. And ultimately what was frustrating to me was that on my long runs beforehand, and that was somewhat new to me, I have no idea what the correlation is, but since you focus so much of what I'm supposed to be doing was fueling, I had no issues with chafing or blisters at all. And so I didn't ignore it. I properly lubed up and stuff, but it still happened, and it frustrated me because I was sort of like, oh, look, I didn't have to worry about that over the last 2 months, so why does that happen now? Like I didn't tape up my feet, and I know that I don't know what race it was, but I mean, I don't know. Perhaps I need to start taping up my feet better or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, there's all those things, right? Like if you had blister issues in this one, it's like, all right, well, you're gonna have a better strategy next time. It's like, well, what socks did you use? What shoes are you using? Did you put lube on your feet? Or maybe tape. I mean, there's just like you talk to a guy like Chad Laster. He's a guy I've coached for a long time. He's 50 years old. He did the Grand Slam this year. And I mean, he's just got it dialed, right? Like he's done probably 30 plus 100-milers, and like, he just knows, like he knows his feet, like he knows his body and how it responds to these things. So like, but as you're getting into it, like you have to learn all those things. And like, I can try and help speed those as a coach, like try and speed those things along and help you miss some of those hurdles. But it's like, I mean, shit, I still end up with blisters and chafage, and I know, right? Like, but sometimes like I have no idea why those underwear and those tights, those compression shorts chafe me on this day when they normally never do. Like, so I don't know. You try and you plan for as many of those things that could go wrong and try and like be in front of them. But I try and tell most people, especially with 100-milers, it's way more about managing the things when they come up, because things are going to go wrong. And so like, how do you deal with them, and how can you like keep a cool head and solve them in the middle of this adventure? So I don't know. But as you do more of them, you'll figure out more and more of that stuff.
Yeah, no, I know. It sort of sideswiped me a little bit just because I prepared for it, but not like super focused. I mean, my big focus was fueling. Like Scott laughed at me on one side. You should have seen, I don't know if you saw a photo of all my baggies. I mean, I felt like the fueling I did really, really well. And the course lends itself that way it was this time, because it's essentially 2 loops, almost like a figure 8, where halfway through you get back to a central point where we essentially had an aid station set up in the car. And so at the finish and halfway through the loop, so you twice per loop you get to the car. And so I had like everything set out. And then Scott had this brilliant idea of like, well, wait a second, you're a race director. You've got one of those like orange cooler things. Why don't we fill this up with tailwind and keep it in the car? And then literally twice per loop, we can refill our own bottles efficiently and stuff. And so we did that, and it was absolutely brilliant. And so I don't know how many bottles of Tailwind I went through. I mean, considering that you've been hammering that so much, and considering that I feel like I've been really bad at that in past, and Scott laughed at me, but he said that throughout his run, he was like, well, if Matthias is fueling so much, I probably need to eat more. And I'm like, yeah, you probably do. And I think he did better with his fueling than ever because he was making fun of me. So I think it worked for him too.
Good. You're welcome, Scott. Yeah.
I know, right? Send him an invoice.
Yeah.
Coaching by osmosis.
So fueling went well, though. Like, you feel good about that.
I feel like fueling went well to the point that, like I checked my pee afterwards and stuff, right? I mean, the weather was as perfect as it can be for a race, except that there was smoke in the air. There was some smoke. It wasn't awful, but it was enough that, especially just before nightfall, I was coughing quite a bit. To the point that I feel like I bruised one of my ribs just from coughing. Like, I feel like my back is sore because I had to cough so much. But it didn't really hinder me. But I felt like, it was super dry. But it was mild enough that throughout the entire night, I could just run in a t-shirt. Like, I didn't have to worry about a whole bunch of clothing changes, and now it's cold, now it's windy, now you come out to this and there's rain, right? I mean, it was literally super consistent for the entire time. And as a result, you also didn't have to adjust your fueling strategy because you never got cold and needed broth to warm you up or whatever, right?
So James should just permanently move the race to October, is what you're saying.
I mean, I feel like the race is so... we ran over alongside and over so many dry riverbeds that were dried out, and having to do 4 loops and constantly crossing streams and potentially snow and stuff, I would not want to do that race in February. I really don't. I feel like in October it was absolutely amazing, and there's this super steep power line trail that at the bottom is sort of bushwacky and stuff. I don't want to do that in February. So I feel like you shouldn't permanently move it to October. Yes, absolutely. I think I would come back in October. I don't know if I would come back in February.
Yeah. Maybe give it another week of time between this one and that statement, and you'd be signing up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't mind the loops. I really don't. Some people hate loops, and for me, to be able to sort of do the first loop and sort of explore the course and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to be encountering 4 times. I can prepare myself for that, and that works well for me, right?
No, I'm very much the same. I mean, there's a reason I've done Rocky Raccoon 5 times.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No, I think, I think it works.
So then let's dig in. I look back at the note you sent after the race. I was looking at your Strava again, and it sounds like ultimately it was just the amount of time on feet and maybe pushing up against the cutoff that led you to stop. And then there were things that probably helped bug your brain enough to say yeah, I really don't want to do this, with chafing and blisters and sore feet. Is that roughly the story of?
Yeah, so let's break it down. I think the first loop went really well, and I actually surprised myself how fast I completed it. I felt really good getting to know the different elements of the course and sort of dealing with, okay, what kind of foods at the aid station? How much should I eat here? How much can I get from the aid stations? Figuring out how to deal with the volunteers. Every race is sort of a little bit different. Sometimes the volunteers are here, help yourself. And some people come give me your bottles. I do everything for you, right? And so figuring all of this out, first loop, I felt great. And then second loop, I felt significantly slower on that. How was it? I think the first half was all right. I mean, there's a 2,000 feet road climb fairly at the beginning. And I mean, I like that. I'm a good power hiker. Like, I don't mind taking my poles down and just like hammering this thing up, right? But I don't quite know where during the second loop things got tough. But I came in the second loop and looked at my time, and I was like, oh, okay, this was an hour and a half slower. And my feet were starting to hurt, and so I changed shoes. And from a timing wise, I was still okay, to the point that I actually laid in the car for 10 minutes, just flat off my feet. New shoes, because the trails were so dry, I could run in my Nikes, and they have a really kind of soft, big heel, which with so much power walking where your heel striking then anyway, right, really helps. And I think that my last Sportivas are really bad for lots of walking. Like if you're running a lot, they're on the forefoot, they're good, but they don't have a lot of heel support. And so my heel gets really hot, spotty and bruised. Like it's not so much blistered, but it's just really heavy. Yeah, no, exactly. And so when I then started off on the third one with new shoes, I felt really good going up the road because the shoes were soft and cushy and stuff. And then by the time I went downhill and made it back to the halfway point, I looked at my time and I was like, oh shit. In order to make cutoff, finish loop 3, I only had 4.5 hours, I think. And at that point, the chafing and the blisters, and I was like, I had this crazy climb ahead of me, 3,000 foot climb over like 2 stretches. And I had 4.5 hours, and 4.5 hours would have been perfect for the entire loop if I did that easy on the first time around. But I looked at it on the second loop and just started comparing times, and I was like, I don't know if I can make it all the way back to the finish. And then on that power line climb, the sun was starting to rise, and that's because I didn't spend a lot of time resting up in between that section. I just completely collapsed. I was like, this is not working. I'm too slow. I'm not going to make cutoff. I'm just going to lay here on that mossy stretch, and I'm going to close my eyes. And I love trail naps. They worked to the point that I enjoyed them, but it didn't help me recover enough that I was like, okay, now I can attack it again. Once I resorted to that, I sort of knew it was over. And I was like, I'm going to finish 3 loops. That will be massive from a miles invert, and I will feel good about that. But I will not try, and with the state that I was in, I did not want to try to push it to make cutoff, destroy myself. And I'm like, hey, look, you could start a 4th loop. I'm like, I've got nothing in the tank. What's the point of starting a 4th loop? Which is, hindsight, perhaps something I should have done. Perhaps I would have. Everyone always says, well, focus only on the stretch ahead of you and blah, blah, blah. Perhaps you get a second wind, blah, blah, blah. No, thank you very much.
But when you're in the moment, it never feels that way.
But when you're in the moment, yeah. And my problem was, that section is super steep up. No, basically no switchbacks. It's just straight up. And then it flattens out, and then there's another 1,000-foot uphill in a mile up to Mount Constitution. And from there, it's sort of 4.5 miles downhill. And on that flat section after that first power line trail, it was like, I need to find my legs there. And I just couldn't. I walked fast, but I mean, I think for me, where I am with my speed, I'm fine with going the uphills reasonably slow because everyone is. But then on the flat-ish downhill sections, you gotta start moving again, right? You gotta make up for those 35-minute miles on the uphill that are just, that's what they are, right? And if you can't get into at least a 14, 15-minute mile trot, right? Then you're going to be too slow to make the individual cutoffs, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you saw just in the little bit of 2 months that we were preparing for this, like I still had you do a lot of short, fast stuff. Partially because I'm just trying to get you, like in that little bit of time to get some improved run economy and fitness, so that your sort of like base easy pace was going to be faster. And when you think of it in terms like of a whole, like a normal whole season, you can often make a lot of gains prior to even the build up for the ultra. Like I've got a guy who's going to do probably an ultra next fall. We just talked this morning, and he's going to do this series of like 10K races. He lives in Wisconsin, so he's going to do a bunch of 10Ks this winter, and then a marathon in April, so that he can be ready for the summer mountain season. Just be faster after a summer of slow mountain stuff. So I don't know. I do see what you're right. Like if you can run the flats and the downs more effectively, like you're going to, you don't think about the cutoffs as much then.
Right. Well, and your physical run economy changes, right? I mean, if you can sort of, on the tough sections where you have to walk and hammer on your heel, right? If you, on these downhill sections, can move back on your forefoot, you're just changing the pressure on your body around, right?
Oh yeah, you get to shift where what muscles are doing more work, and the other ones get a break. And yeah, no, it's one of the nice things about hilly races too, because like uphill versus downhill running usually works the body in a different way, whereas like a flat one, it's like the same rhythm the whole time, and it's hard to shift that stress around.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if you think about at least 24,000 feet of vert, if I would have had 40-hour cutoff, I mean, I definitely would have started a fourth loop. I would have at least given myself a chance. Yeah, I think if I would have, I was then so slow on the downhill on the third loop, because I was just like, there's this tower club. I don't know if you're familiar with the race, but up on Mount Constitution. Yeah. I mean, it's beautiful. It's actually really, for people who are spooked running at night, it's an amazing race to consider, because it's an island. There are no cougars and bears.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there was only a couple deer that were spooky enough, as they were staring at you in the night. But for people who are really spooked out by potentially encountering wildlife, I can highly recommend running Orcas, because you're on a closed ecosystem.
Yeah. Nice.
But there is, on the highest point of the course, there is a sort of a tourist lookout tower that looks like an old castle tower. Obviously, it's not, because it's the West Coast. But there is this tower club that they're doing, where you optionally can go up the tower and like punch your bib at the top with a clicker, and then they encircle that when you make it to the finish, and that's how. And if you do that 4 times and finish the race, then you're part of the tower club. You get a special T-shirt and stuff like that, right? And I thought of this, and I thought, well, 4 times the tower, 60 stairs, tight, whatever, right? It's going to take me at least 10 minutes per attempt. I'm not even going to do that. And at one aid station, I was telling people about it, and they were like, what? Right? And, at a pre-race briefing, everybody, like, peer pressure is, if we all doing this, right? And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm looking at the time. And I'm like, this is, 40 minutes is like, this is too tight. And so on my last loop, I actually did go up to the top, because I was like, it's anyway already over, right? I'm not even gonna try it and stuff. So yeah, I was diddle-daddling then towards the end. But
so when you got to the end of loop 3, were you already past the cutoff?
Yeah.
Okay, so there wasn't an option to go out.
Basically, I just looked at that. Yeah.
Because and the reason I bring it up is because like people get their math wrong a lot.
Oh my gosh, I did. Yes.
Yeah, it's so easy to be like, I'm not going to make it, and then you end up dropping, and then you find out later, like, wait a minute, I had an extra 3 hours. How did I get that wrong out there? I've seen it, so I've done it, but I'm terrible. I'm usually pretty good at math, but I'm terrible at it. 70 miles in.
Yeah, no, was it? It was during loop 2 when I was freaking out that I had completely gotten my math wrong, thinking that I needed to be back by 16 hours. Like, there would have been 8 hours each, but it's actually 18 hours, right? It's 36 cutoff, 9 hours per loop. And so, yeah, I was freaking out during loop 2, thinking that this is super tight. And when I noticed it, I was like, oh, I'm such a moron. Yeah. No, it was essentially there was 11 miles, 3,000 feet of vert, the two dumbest, steep, evilest climbs, and I had 4.5 hours. And for the first loop, that was no problem, right? But for the second loop, it was the third loop, and I'm trying to explain that power line climb. When it's called power lines, right?
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it
no,
basically goes,
just, yeah,
it goes straight up, right? And you just use your poles, and I'm good with that in general. I can sort of like my legs never cramped the entire time, which is another indication that I ate pretty well. But I was sort of ready for just like, this is going to suck no matter what. I'm just going to close my eyes because it's just straight up, and see how I feel on the way up when I'm come out the other way. And just like, I don't know, halfway up or so, I was like, this isn't happening. I can't move without having to stop. And I don't know if it was tired. Like, I just felt really deeply fatigued doing that section, which I don't know. I didn't sleep well.
Awesome. There's like, and to sit back here and play like armchair, whatever you call it, like, it's like, well, was it because you needed more calories? Was it in your head? Was there, like, it's hard to say, right? Like, we just did in our Team Run book club, we did the Rise of the Ultra Runners, and like, he talked numerous times in that book about how he like came back with these amazing second wins and third wins, and like thought he was done, but then like came back. And we in our book club yesterday, we had a guy on the call who had just finished Moab. Lee is his name, and we asked him, like, did you have any of those moments? He's like, oh yeah, at least 4 times. And so it's tough to say. Like, I don't know, maybe it would have been like, oh, if you'd had a bunch of caffeine, or or maybe the fatigue was really there, and like your legs were toast, and like there'd been enough damage to the muscles that they weren't going to do it anymore. But then you add in all the other things that sort of like weigh on your mind to make you want to stop. Like, these blisters are terrible. My feet hurt. I'm so chafed. I'm barely going to make cutoff. Even if I do make cutoff, like, it's a lost cause. I should stop. It's like, that's like the challenge of the 100-miler. It's like, it's even if like you're not up against a cutoff, like, I mean, I have those same things. If I'm not up against a cutoff, I still have all those same sort of like things that like pile up, in the for stopping category, like I'm not, I can't eat, or my legs feel shot, or like whatever it may be, like those things just pile up. And part of the challenge is to figure out, like, quiet that stuff down, figure out what you can be doing that's positive, not think too far ahead. It's in my opinion, even though I wouldn't say this in the moment, I'd probably say you're an idiot, Matt, if I said this in the moment. But like, that's one of the best parts about 100-milers is like that mental struggle, the up and the downs of it, and trying to sort of like be a good arbiter of what's going on in your head. That's one of the best parts about the experience, I think.
I talked with my wife about it afterwards and said, I don't know, perhaps I have a really low pain tolerance. And she just laughed at me and like, yeah, that's because you're not a woman. We as women know how to deal with pain better. And I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I don't know, right? I mean, yeah, there is that question that lingers now. I was like, why did I give up, right? I mean, but in the moment, calculating, I felt good about the decision. I felt good about having completed. I didn't walk the power line backwards the mile, 2 miles to the aid station and say, I'm done, right? I completed the loop. And by completing the loop and setting out to complete the loop, I gave myself the theoretical chance that what happens if a second wind would have appeared, right? 4.5 hours would have, if I would have hauled ass on the downhill, which was not as technical as the other downhill, I could have made it, right? I think I set out, and when I left with 4.5 hours, when I knew the cutoff was tight, I didn't give up. I gave myself the chance of saying, okay, I'm going to attempt this, and I don't know if it's going to work, but at least I'm giving myself the chance to allow this to happen. And it didn't, and that was okay too, but I at least allowed that, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and I think you'll feel better as time goes on that you did that, right? Because it's one thing to have been like, I don't think I could have made the cutoffs, and then stopped after 2 loops and just been like, man, I'm too slow. I can't do this today. At least like my dad, when he was 60, did one ultra. He did Rainier to Ruston, and he was feeling all bad for himself. 20 some miles in, he was like, well, I'm not going to quit, but I'm going to make them pull me off the course. I won't make the cutoff. And then apparently one of the buses taking people out to the start was late. So they said, we're not going to have any cutoffs today. We screwed up the start. So my dad was like, I have to finish this thing. And he did. He was slow, but he finished it.
Well, you see, and this is the other thing, talking about people getting math wrong. This is the thing that I think I've at least once before miscalculated, that I'm saying, well, if what I'm getting wrong is that if I miss the last cutoff, on course cutoff, or if I make it, but then I only have a certain amount of time because there is a finish line cutoff. But if you make all the on course cutoffs and you come in an hour after the final cutoff, you still get a finish. There are very few races where they would say, well, you ran the entire course and you've made every cutoff throughout the race, but you came in 45 minutes, an hour late, so now you're not going to get your medal, right? I mean, usually people are okay. And there's something I miscalculated. I was sort of saying, well, if I make it just under cutoff after 3 loops, then they would only have 9 hours for the final loop, and that's not enough time for me and my body. But I had more. I just would have needed a certain amount of time to the next cutoff, right? And, as you're saying, math is shit.
And I mean, after every one of my DNFs, I've like gone through all the thoughts of like, man, if I would have just done this, or if I would have done that, then like you can see how the outcome would have been different had you made some different decisions. And I mean, that's part of what makes you go and click sign up for the next one. You're like, damn it, I know I can do that better. I remember after Desert Solstice last year, one of the guys who's like always there and times all these events and stuff, he was like, well, we're going to see you back next year. And I was like, I think I'm one and done on this crazy track thing. I'm doing it. I'm signed up for it this year. Because I knew after I thought about it, I was like, God, I can do that so much better. I can't just leave it at that. Like I don't want to. I want to come back and do it better, even though it's a crazy dumb event.
Nutrition-wise, the one challenge that I have for me still is trying to find non-sweet stuff. Like, because Tailwind is sweet and I drink so much of it. And Scott said that halfway through, he switches to 1 bottle of Tailwind and 1 bottle of water, which is better that you get something. But plain water, especially when it gets warm, tastes so gross to me that I felt like I might as well just get the benefits from the nutritions of Tailwind in, especially because I'm slow, that I will really take so long between aid stations that 2 bottles of Tailwind, I mean, was sort of really good for the baseline, but that's sweet in the entire time. And coming at aid stations, all I wanted was solid non-sweet food. I had 2 cups of coffee, which was phenomenal. And there were And the hash browns, they were a little bit greasy. I felt like I was eating them for the next 2 hours afterwards. I was constantly like, ooh. But yeah, like the
Were there any other aid station foods that sat well with you that you were like, oh, I'm glad I had that?
I love the grilled cheese because it was substantial, but it was dry, better than quesadillas. Like it just, it was non-sweet and it felt dry, not oily and greasy like the hash browns, right? Um, what other stuff did I have? I had some bacon, which was good. Talking about greasy stuff, but the bacon was already cold and it was cold and thick and dryish, so it was actually good. Yeah, I mean, my stomach. There was one time I came to an aid station over a hill climb where a guy was like, "You don't look so good. You should take those salt tabs or whatever they were." And I took them and was okay, but my stomach never completely turned on me. But I did definitely not eat as much as I had in my baggies. But I was really scrounging and trying to find the solid stuff, right? And here's the other thing. I think I ate well during the daytime, and then it's night. And so I think my body is like, why are you eating at night, right? I mean, yeah, you're up, but I mean, at night your body doesn't want to eat anymore, right? So it felt a little bit more challenging trying to find any kind of food at 3 a.m. that my body wanted. Right?
I hear you. There's so many ways you can think about this stuff too. Like, and if you're only going to go through one night, the games change with all these 200 milers, right? And like, well, if you have to think about multiple nights of doing that, it's different. But like I know when I think about like Hard Rock or even Desert Solstice coming up, where like I know I'm going to go through the night, like I'm going to withhold caffeine until probably like 10 or 11 p.m. And then when I have that caffeine, I'm going to be like, it's morning. I'm amazing. I can't wait. Life is great. And I'm saying this because I'm thinking about my Desert Solstice strategy. Like I'm vegan. And so I'm not eating the cheese quesadillas, but like a Papa John's pizza with no cheese is vegan. I don't ever eat that in regular life, but I'm like, that would sound really good right now at 2 or 3 in the morning. When I'm just running around the track eating a piece of pizza, like that would be filling, and I'm like, I would be excited to eat that. So like that's going to be part of my
I did bring a whole bunch of my own pizza with me, and I had like 2 or 3 pieces, but then totally forgot about that. But then James always has like a pizza food cart at his finish lines.
Oh yeah.
And so they've been basically cooking pizza there all, throughout the entire race. So there was always fresh pizza there. So I ate the fresh pizza. And yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
And their pizza is like one of the best pizzas I've ever eaten.
I'm in the same boat, like thinking about like what are the solid savory foods to eat. Some people swear by like they make their own like rice balls or onigi or just rice ball type stuff. So there's some of those sort of like healthier ideas that are less processed or less fat, like greasy. But yeah, I think that like when you get past like a 20-hour race or so, like most people's bodies just want something like that. It's hard to go on just liquids or gels or sugar.
I read race reports of like kind of pro athletes, and I read what they eat, and I'm like, I don't know how you've trained your body to be okay with that type of food and with that little of food, because I'm a big guy too, but I can't live off of just one salt tablet and one goo and a can of Coke, and I repeat that every 3 hours. I'm like, I don't know.
I can tell you, it's not everyone. Like at Desert Solstice last year, Arlen Glick, he went through the 100-mile in like 13 hours or something like that. And he was running around the track eating a Wendy's double cheeseburger. The stuff's just falling out of the burger. There's a pickle in lane 1 for like 6 hours from his burger. Like, and when you run by that thing a few hundred times, you're like, oh, there's the pickle again. There's the pickle. So I know at least Arlen Glick was pounding double cheeseburgers from Wendy's during the middle of his 24-hour attempt.
That is amazing. I wish this would be a podcast about Desert Solstice, because otherwise the title would be Pickle in Lane 1. That is amazing. That's the best title ever.
And I bet if you queried all 30 of us who did that race, we would all remember that
No, well,
visual
for
too.
sure, for sure. The hilarious part too is, I mean, you're on a track. Like somebody easily could have picked that up, right? But no,
Yeah,
it's.
none of us stopped. No.
No, that's amazing.
So what do you what like where are you now then? You've thought about like, okay, maybe I could have done this, or these are the things that went well. Now what do you think?
I don't quite know yet what I think. Like I feel like, well, I'm a European, so I feel like if I would never have to run 100 mile again because I find the distance so dumb. If I would stay with 100Ks, that would feel for me like a achievement because I love the night running. I really do. Like I don't wanna give up and say, well, I guess I'm just a short distance guy because I really, really do love the night. But yeah, I mean, I've not been able to break anything after 75 miles, 20, whatever, 28 hours or 28 hours, right? So I feel sort of, I don't know what to do afterwards. So, I don't know. I mean, perhaps it would be good to focus on something shorter just to actually get to the finish line once or twice or something. And going into the race knowing that you're going to make it, like you can then sort of focus. If you go into a race not knowing if you're going to make it, and then you have to deal so much with that question that you perhaps distract yourself and you can't focus on other things. And perhaps it would be good to take that equation off the table and say, well, if I run a 50K or perhaps even a half marathon or a 50 miler, so then I know that I'm going to be able to make it and I can focus on trying to work on a few other things and don't have to worry on that monster. I mean, at some point I want to tackle it because shit, I have to tackle it at some point, right? My pride and ego makes me have to do this at some point, right?
And because you know enough people who have done it, who are like, it's worth it. Like, you talk to these people all the time. Like, it's worth it. So, like, I can see, like, you could have lots of reasons for why you want to get it done, but, like, it's good. Like, I was thinking of Michael Linscott when you were talking, and you've talked to him on here before. And, I think it was Badger that he DNF'd earlier this year. And I remember talking with him about it afterwards, and he was like, I miss not being able to do the night. Like, I love the running through the night part. I love coming out in the morning and like coming alive again. And there's just like, I feel like there's so many reasons to do it. I can say with a lot of confidence that like you can do this. Like, it's not like a thing that's like out of your realm. You have picked some challenging races for the ones you've tried. It's not like not to pick on Rocky Raccoon or the Indiana 100, but like if you went down to Huntsville, Texas, I'm confident you could go do that, right? Not that it's easy. Like, you can still make that one really hard, but like, and I'm not suggesting you do that, but like, you've picked really challenging races, which is cool. Like, go big. But at the same time, I would encourage you to not like, you don't want to be like in that sort of get into that negative cycle of like, I never finish these things. I just can't get it done. Like, no, it didn't work. Like, we have like our things that we learned, why they didn't happen in the first attempts, and like how you can do them better, and then you just, it's like the kids show Bluey. Like, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, and you go try again. It's just how, like, that's part of the fun of this. Like, like, not make it like my coach David Roche. He'd be like, say, like, don't make it bigger than it is, right? Like, this is a thing we do that we're lucky that we get to do. Go out and have fun with it, and it might not work sometimes, and that's fine. But like, you're going to get something out of it. You're going to learn something as long as you have your eyes open and you look for it, and then you go try again, and you'll probably be better because you've went through these other things, these other experiences beforehand. So I don't know. I would say, like, I do agree that it's good to do like shorter, faster stuff and to like get those experiences where you're like practicing racing more than just like the slogging. So, like, doing some 50Ks or trail marathons or even trail halves, whatever, like those kind of distances are really good. And then they're helping to build you up so that you're ready to race longer and you get a practice, because when you do the shorter ones, you practice other things. And then lastly, I would just say, like, I would, and this would come with more training and preparation too. Like having the belief going in, like, I know I can get this done. So that you're, even if you're pushing a cutoff, you're not like, I say, I don't want to say you're not thinking about it the whole time, because I imagine when you're like up against the cutoff, it's hard to not think about it. But like, just the more you prepare, the more self confidence and belief you have that you will do it. And it's like, oh God, I'm getting kind of close on this one. I better get out of this aid station and get moving. Like, I'm going to get this done, and this isn't going to stop me. And you train the self talk over time too, to like have yourself telling yourself the right things. It just comes with practice and doing them, and yeah, it's worth doing more of them because they're awesome.
It is really true. I mean, the rational and the point, the voice in me that rationalizes everything or excuses everything says, in Europe there are lots of runners who never run 100-milers or have not, right? Who are highly competitive and focus on shorter distances, and almost every event offers shorter distances and stuff, right? And so there is a little bit of a different mentality around racing, wherein over here, I think we're so informed, inspired by Western states, where sort of an event offers one distance, and that's the 100-miler, right? That sort of, a lot of people I talk to here in the US, they only consider the 100-mile distance the trail racing distance, right? And in Europe, it's a little bit different, right? I think in Europe, you can sort of focus on other distances. I mean, if I wouldn't have life right now and the realities of finances and budgets and kids graduating from high school and stuff like that, I would sign up for the that Elsa's UTMB race in May and do the 100K there. I would feel confident that with that much training up until May, that I could run that race. And I would only do the 100K just because traveling to Europe on a kind of, I would say with my folks and stuff like that. But I mean, I would try to make it a short trip and not a fully acclimatized blah, blah, blah trip, right? But knowing too that seeing family would be quite a bit distracting too. And so I wouldn't want to try to do another 100-mile. I would focus on the 100K distance, right? That's what I would do.
So you go in, you go do the race, and then you go spend some time while you recover with your family. And let me know when, because maybe I'll come over and run that one, because I'll hopefully be in Portugal, and it'll be just a quick jump over.
I like it. That would be amazing. The location, I think, is beautiful, and it's early season, so you're not taken away from mountain time. And I don't know. I mean, I haven't looked too much at the trail. I mean, it could be that many of the sections could be super gnarly, rocky, rooty, that will slow you down, right? But I think overall, that, it's like, the finish is like 20 minutes from Strasbourg, which is like 2 hours from my home. I mean, it's so close, right, from my family home. So, yeah. I know. No, absolutely. No, this is the thing. This is the race that is currently on my dream package. I just have a child graduating, and the idea of leaving the last month before graduation, I have to really smartly coordinate to not screw up family life too much.
Very reasonable. I was talking with another guy today about how he was going to get his stones, because similar stories. He got kids and lives in Milwaukee, and it's like, wow, how do we do this? So he's probably going to go out and do the speed goat races in July, so he doesn't miss school time and stuff. But like, if you do the 50K and the 20K the next day, I think you get 4 stones.
I looked at that too. I looked at that too because I think it would be. I mean, speed goat is super steep. There's tons of vert in it, but I think a 50 and a 20 with a night sleeping is a very reasonable way of getting yourself 4 stones, right?
And I mean, there just aren't that many options in America right now. As you know, I like that resource you put together, by the way. Really good stuff. I'll give you a shout out for
Yes,
that.
thank you.
Yeah, like figuring out how you're going to get them is tough if you're not going to travel to Europe to go get them. I mean, there just aren't many options.
No, in Europe there are by now so many options, and over here there are fewer, and you know, a lot of race directors over here are also so pissed at Ironman that I think even getting indexed is really tough, right? I mean, Orcas was in that sense a very dumb race. I mean, I didn't finish it, so it doesn't matter anyway. But I mean, I wouldn't have even been indexed, right? And because of my stupid endless DNFs, I don't have an index at all right now, which is very, very to the point that Trixie is signed up to run the Gorge 50K. She got into the lottery, and that is in April. So there's a chance that she potentially has an index before I do, which is...
Oh, is Gorge is a UTMB index
is an
race?
Index race, yes. So this is... I don't know. This can't stand.
No, it's good. It's how it works, though. I mean, like, I had a high enough index that I was elite for a while, but then I just haven't had any great races in the last couple of years where, like, I don't have a good score. So it's like, gosh, do I race races just so I can get a better ranking? You know, it's kind of like, do you do some races that are, like, not the epic ones that you care about so you can, you know, get some stones or, like, get some index, you know, get a ranking? I don't know. Like, do the thing that lights your fire the most. I mean...
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it is such a fun and funny and crazy game because you can approach it in so many different ways, right? I mean, you can say super local, but then the reality is, especially if you do 100-mile or even the local races, is so much more than just entry fees. And in fact, actually, US races are a lot more expensive than European races, right? So technically, the financial justification is that Gran Elsa's race is it's like half the price of a US race, and if I can stay with my folks, I don't have hotel costs. So it's really just the airplane, right? And over here, you never go to Speed Goat. I mean, you end up spending, I mean, for 3-4 nights, you spend up easily, you know, $800 on a hotel room, right? So, I mean, really, I mean, the Alsace race is super cheap for me to do. You see how this works?
Oh yeah, no, it's exactly how it works with your brain when you're in the 100-mile course too, and you're thinking like, I don't know if I can make this, and then your brain starts saying, no, you can't make this. These are all the reasons you should stop, and our minds are, it's great. It's good stuff. It's an awesome sport.
I mean, it is an awesome sport because, as you mentioned earlier, we are so privileged that we're able to do this, and it's such a therapeutic thing for 12, 20, 36 hours to have to think about absolutely nothing, right? All problems sort of are secondary to how do I get this soft flask unscrewed or something like that, right? I mean, we're reducing ourselves to these basics, and I think we're learning something for our regular life. So it's not just therapeutic and sort of a brain vacation, but we're also sort of learning how, yeah, you know, sometimes you just have to show up and keep one foot in front of the other, right?
Yeah, we have a coach who, she last minute got an invite to the Barkley Fall Classic last month, and she's got like 2 or 3 kids, and they're all in the age where they're like all in their like sports and travel soccer or travel baseball or whatever, and she was like stressed out, but she says, I went there, I did that race, and like just changed my perspective on all of it, and just feel like so much more calm and in control than pre doing that crazy event. It just like shifted her perspective on life going out and doing that crazy race in Tennessee. So yeah, it's a great sport in a lot of ways. So, do another one. Keep trying.
Yeah, and no, absolutely, right. And you travel to beautiful places, and in general, it's a very safe sport too, right? I mean, you walk away with a couple blisters. Our spouses and family, they don't have to worry that we might not come back. In general, right? I mean, yes, there are these exceptions, but statistically, they don't exist, right? I mean, we didn't. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I started it, because I really wanted to go and to get into mountaineering. That was for me sort of the ideal pastime. But A, I have a huge fear of height, and B, I can't. Well, I mean, and something that I could sort of work on and be willing to work on, and go to a climbing gym and throw myself into the rope hundreds of times in order to overcome this fear of sort of losing control. But this idea of saying, okay, honey, I'm going into the mountains, let's just hope I'll come back, I just felt like wasn't really worth the adventure. And so that's why I love this trail running thing, right? Yeah, that you get to do something that is, for me and for many others, a crazy adventure, but it's just so safe. It's so well, there we are. The Orcas 100 debrief. I feel debriefed. Yeah,
I can tell you, I think that, yes, there's some logistical things you can work on. You can obviously, we can like work on things like chafing and blisters and figure out like, all right, where are the specifics? What gear are you wearing? And like test out some new stuff in training. And then I think just with a longer build up than 2 months, like you could, I mean, I see how fast you can run your faster stuff. So it's not like you have potential to be a much faster, more efficient runner. Like you can see it when you do 1 minute intervals. It's like, oh, okay, well, you can hit sub 6 pace. There's no reason you can't be running sub 10-minute pace for an easy pace. It just takes some practice and building up the body to do that sort of thing. And then when you have that, then when you go into these longer runs, it's like those 15-minute shuffle miles become 11-minute shuffle miles, and you're like, the cutoffs become non-existent unless there's like a major problem, like, oh, I can't eat today because that's hot and blah, 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 So I think that like it's totally doable for you. It's just like a bigger buildup, try and improve a few logistical things, find some savory foods that you can carry along with you that you can eat.
No, absolutely. I mean, I've been super enjoying working with you and sort of getting sort of your obviously your encouragement, but also sort of your focus on what to focus on and stuff. And I think it's been super helpful, and I've been very much enjoying that process of also sort of knowing that sort of the practical thing that I didn't really foresee when thinking about working with the coaches. You have your week a lot of it structured out, wherein if you fly sort of by yourself, after every run training session, you sort of think, well, how do I feel? And that determines what you do the following day, as opposed to, well, you're going into today's already knowing what tomorrow and the following day looks like, right? And I think that adjusts how you feel about what you've achieved, and you sort of trust that these pieces build upon, rather than just swimming completely blind. I'm like, I hope I did not vert in miles and time on feet and whatnot, right? So I think it makes sense. Super. Matt, thank you so much for letting me kind of like blah this all out.
I love this stuff, man. I love geeking out about running. And and especially 100 milers. I mean, I'll talk with people about the Chicago Marathon and how that goes too. And I mean, the marathon's great, but like, you just get so much deeper into your head when you do 100 milers, and they're awesome. So, yeah, I talk about those things every day.